But first, as I mentioned, with WA by-election due later this month and the Victorian state election less now than 4 months away, plus New South Wales going to the polls in March next year, One Nation still leading in some polls as the most popular political party in the nation, has started to bolster not only backroom campaigning staff but also announcing a range of upper house candidates for the Victorian election. James Ashby, a regular on this program and elsewhere on Sky, and seen as the Svengali behind the latest popularity of One Nation, with, of course, the indefatigable Pauline Hanson herself. Well, he's been promoted. He's been promoted, you have to say, from Chief of Staff role to Party Director, according to the Australian newspaper today. They also report that Hanson and Ashby have managed to recruit a former senior advisor to Liberal PM Scott Morrison, a bloke called Chris Taylor, who will fill the old Ashby role. Now, the filling of senior roles and indeed candidates with ex-Liberals is to be expected. A lot of coalition-connected members have increasingly become disillusioned, either with the broader party or the current leader, Angus Taylor. And the federal Liberals continue to delude themselves that if necessary, they would not do a deal with Hanson's One Nation if forced into a position of, say, minority government in either Victoria, New South Wales or indeed federally. I mean, you can't convince me that when push comes to shove, that would not happen in the best interests of Australians who want to see particularly the back of the Victorian Labor government after 12 years, or the Albanese government that is currently destroying property prices right around Australia with their tax attacks on investors. But here was Deputy Liberal leader Jane Hume yesterday on your ABC.
I've said that we have no plans, no intention. There is no plans to have a coalition with One Nation. That is our commitment. We are already in coalition. We plan to govern as a coalition, as a Liberal national coalition, as we have done for 80 years.
You need to note there the word coalition in both of those responses. I mean, the obvious question to Senator Hume, or the obvious follow-up question, should have been, OK, forget a coalition. Will you rule out doing a minority government deal, not a formal coalition deal, if you need the numbers to govern? I mean, I reckon she would dodge and weave, but remember what Julia Gillard did with Rob Oakeshott, Tony Windsor and Bob Catter, what a disaster that all was, when she could not rule in her own right. As I said, a total disaster, but a reality. And if Taylor and Hume need One Nation, that's surely what's going to happen. I mean, how else can you explain the response from another senior Liberal last week on the Today Show, Senator Andrew Bragg?
We would definitely work out whoever would be interested in being in a coalition with us if that's what the numbers were. Of course, we're not crazy. If the numbers were the numbers and we had to be in coalition with others, then of course we would be pragmatic.
Seems sensible, and that's exactly what I'm saying. Now, I'm catching up in a moment with senior Liberal James McGrath, who always strikes me as being measured and a practical sort of guy, and we'll see what he has to say. I mean, this reluctance by the Liberals to admit that they might need to seek One Nation's help is understandable. I mean, they are caught between a rock and a hard place. If they overcommit and say, sure, we'd work together with One Nation, and then some random One Nation candidate goes rogue, like has happened in the past, well, that says something way out there. Well, they'd be caught up in all of the nightmare of those comments. But the Libs need to tread carefully. As it stands, the most popular opposition party federally is not the coalition, it is One Nation. And poll after poll all year has told us the same story. In the end, it might be One Nation offering the Liberals a chance to join a One Nation government. This was Cos Samaras from Redbridge on News 24 earlier today.
Labor has lost primary votes mainly to One Nation, and it's largely in, as we just touched on, outer suburbs of large cities, but mainly those regional pockets like the Hunter in New South Wales. So Labor could still lose a bundle of seats, mainly to One Nation. So its biggest opponent is exactly that, and that is Pauline Hanson and the damage she's doing to them in those areas.
That poll was today in the Financial Review. Now, as a Liberal, I'd be very careful what you wish for. Pauline has a long memory, including serving time in jail, thanks to the Liberal Party. And just an update, we will try and cross to that One Nation fundraiser. It's happening in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne to see how that protest is unfolding. earlier an announcement on Victorian upper house candidates that included a former Liberal MP, a former protection officer who guarded Dan Andrews during COVID, and Kenny regular Mark Nicholson of the Please Explain cartoon series. An interesting lineup, to say the least.
OK, see this. A party once dismissed as a protest vote, a fringe outfit for grumbling about immigration on talkback radio, just hired a former Scott Morrison advisor as Chief of Staff and handed its old Chief of Staff the keys to run every campaign nationally. That is not a protest movement anymore. That is a machine, and it is aimed squarely at the major parties. Quick favour before we get into it. If you are enjoying these breakdowns, hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell. Over 90% of you watching right now have not subscribed yet. It costs nothing, takes 2 seconds, and it genuinely helps the channel keep doing this kind of digging. Cheers if you do. Now, let us get into the good stuff. Here is the state of play. Western Australia has a by-election this month. Victoria heads to the polls on the 28th of November. New South Wales follows in March. And smack in the middle of all that timing, Pauline Hanson has restructured One Nation like she's building a government in waiting, not a Senate crossbench act. James Ashby, her long-serving right-hand man, has been bumped up to party director, running national campaign operations. In his old chair sits Chris Taylor, a Morrison-era policy advisor, now running Hanson's office. Translation: One Nation just imported Liberal Party professionalism and pointed it at the Liberal Party. And here's where it gets deliciously awkward. Publicly, senior Liberals are singing from the No Coalition, No Way hymn sheet. Acting opposition leader Jane Heim compared switching allegiance to barracking for a rival football team. Charming. But scratch the surface and you get senators like Andrew Bragg admitting the party would be, quote, pragmatic if the numbers demanded it. That is politician for we absolutely will if we have to. Think of it like a footy ladder. For decades, it's been a two-horse race, Labor and the Coalition trading the flag every few years. One Nation was the mascot on the sideline. Now the mascot has recruited real players, built a real bench, and is threatening to gatecrash the grand final. In Victoria, their Legislative Council ticket includes figures with genuinely compelling backstories, from a former protection officer for Daniel Andrews to candidates who have gone toe-to-toe with Liberals in court. That is not random candidate selection. That is narrative warfare, and it is working. Labor should be nervous too. Their primary vote is bleeding in outer suburban and regional seats, precisely where One Nation is strongest. So picture the 2028 scenario. It might not be the Liberals offering One Nation a seat at the table. It might be One Nation deciding who gets invited to theirs. Australia is not watching a fringe party throw tantrums anymore. We're watching the arithmetic of power quietly change. Thanks so much for watching. Please don't forget to drop your thoughts in the comments below.